as kind of romantic and as intriguing as Egypt is, it hasn't gotten a lot of play. Like, people don't really know what it is. So I was like, you know, I don't see a lot of other chefs in the United States who are going to go do that.
Sure.
And so that was another part of wanting to do it. And then showing what you could make it.
Thank you all for joining this evening. And welcome to the Commonwealth Club World Affairs Program. My name is Omar Mamoun, a San Francisco-based writer and your moderator for this evening. Before we get started, a few reminders. The club would like to thank the Bernard Orsher Foundation for supporting tonight's Food Lit event. It's going to be lit. Tonight's program is being recorded, so we kindly ask that you silence your cell phones for the duration of the program. If you have any questions for Chef Mina, please fill them out on the cards that are on your seats, or if you're online through the YouTube chat. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce tonight's guest, Chef Michael Mina, author of Egypt, Cooking from My Roots.
Hello, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Chef Mina was born in Cairo, Egypt, and is one of America's most celebrated chefs and restaurateurs. He's the founder of the Mina Group, which owns and operates more than 30 restaurants around the world. That's a lot. That's a lot of restaurants. That's pretty crazy. Chef Mina has been honored with numerous culinary accolades, including a Michelin star, the James Beard Foundation's Who's Who of Food and Beverage, Guyot's Restaurateur of the Year, and so many more. Chef Mina, welcome back to the club, and congrats on the book.
Thank you.
And I'm so curious, like, okay, so you were born in Cairo and you moved to, your parents moved to the States when you were just 2.
That's correct, yeah.
In Washington.
In Washington.
Okay, so my question is, what were your parents doing at the time? What year did they move? Just to give us
1970, very end of 69.
Okay. And what were your parents doing professionally, out of curiosity?
My mom was a chemistry professor, and my father was at the Egyptian American College and doing similar to what he does now. He's running, the business department, finance, internal auditor.
Okay. And so to come to Washington, of every place in the world, first of all, why? And then why Washington? That's what I'm so curious about.
So kind of like probably a similar story to a lot of people that immigrate. It's where your family ends up. And so my mom had 6 brothers and sisters. So I think there's 7 of them total that were here. So a few of them had already come, and they had come to Washington State. So we ended up in Washington State, and then my dad started applying for jobs and got his job at Central Washington University in like this very small town in the center of the state called Ellensburg.
Gotcha. And your mother, did she also continue working in?
No, she didn't. My mom, she raised us.
Yeah.
And
us, there's how many of you?
There's 3.
3.
I'm the youngest.
You're the youngest.
Older brother, older sister.
Okay.
And so she raised us, and obviously they both raised us, but she, my mom, it took, took her a lot longer to really adapt to the language than it did my father.
And so growing up, I'm trying to figure out, like, at what point did you learn that I feel like with a lot of chefs, writers, just people in food, there's an aha moment where they're like, or I guess any kind of vocation that you sort of trade that you take on. There's an aha moment where you're like, I really like food, and like you've built a career in the kitchen. I'm curious, like, when did that start? Was it and is there a way you can, or a point where you can like pinpoint like, I just like food, or I like eating food, or I like cooking, or like, what was that like for you, that formative aha moment where you're like, oh man, Like, this is my life?
Well, those are two different questions.
Sure. Answer whichever one you want in whatever order.
I'm
Yeah,
joking.
yeah.
The moment I decided I liked food, as soon as I started eating it. The moment I decided, that I that I really felt like this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So my story is not very, it's fairly similar to a lot of chefs.
Yep.
Like I think a lot of us, a lot of people that I talk to, you start out, it's a job. And I started washing dishes when I was 13 in a small little...
13?
13,
That's young.
Yeah.
Wow. Were your parents like, you need to get a job?
Kind of.
Yeah, okay.
But I started, and then really by the time, I was, and it was just this little, kind of cafe truck stop type place. And
In
Washington. And the guy who, was running it, the chef, he wanted to be a chef so bad. He thought he was. He had the hat that flopped over and the whole 9 yards, and he was grilling burgers, and it was his place, and he wasn't doing that great health-wise. I would just go all the time because I just got so intrigued by it, and I was really intrigued by it because, a restaurant gets into your blood. It's like it quickly becomes a family. Like it's kind of a soap opera actually. It's like everybody's business is everyone's business, especially back then. And I just kind of fell in love with it. As much as it was like a very simple place, there wasn't a single thing that he didn't make. Like if he did, chicken and dumplings, like he was making the dumplings, he was cooking the chicken, he was pulling the chicken. So at least the foundation of it is the way you would want it to be. And so I would just go in all the time, like when I wasn't working, and he would teach me how to cook. And by the time I was, 15, I was cooking full time there. And really my last 2 years of high school, he wasn't very healthy. And so really my last 2 years of high school, I'd work study after 11:30. Like the town I grew up in was 8,000 people outside the college, and it was the second largest rodeo in the nation at the time. So it tells you a little bit about the demographic of what it was. And so it wasn't that hard to get, to get all of your required classes out of the way.
Sure.
So I had 2 years that I'd get out of school at like 11:30, 12, and I really, kind of ran this little restaurant. But I just fell in love with all of it, with the whole thing. I loved cooking. I would go home. That's all I could think about. I loved just the interaction of the guests and the employees and everything about it. To me, it was never work. It was never work. And so I would, my brother is a really good musician, and I would listen I would listen to him complain he's 5 years older than me. I'd listen to him complain all the time about college and that's not what he wanted to do. And he was, kind of being forced into it and everything else. And so by the time, I'm blessed because when I was 15, I knew that this is what I was going to do for the rest of my life.
Wow.
But it took 2 years to figure out how to tell my parents that.
Well, that was my next question is how did your immigrant parents who moved here from Egypt to presumably, give their children a better life? What is your mom and your dad's reaction when you're like, I think I'm gonna just be a chef for my life. Yeah. What was their reaction to that?
Well, it goes something like this. It's probably not too far off from other people.
Sure.
But you get three choices. You can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be an engineer. You can pick any one of the three, though. Chef, we don't even know what that word is. In 1984, no one even knows what that word is. And so the word in Arabic is tabakh. Inta tabakh. You're gonna be a servant. We moved all this way. We did all this so you could be a servant. So when I finally told them, when I was, like I said, I was a senior in high school, and my mom was on the ground praying. My father was yelling at me for the first time in my life. He really yelled at me. I had great parents. So don't get me wrong, but tabakh was not that wasn't in the cards.
Oh my God.
And so we came up with a negotiation. So I had to do 1 year of college, and And if I still, because they thought I was going, they thought I must have been crazy, like something was going on with my mind. So if I still was as crazy and thought I wanted to be a chef, they'd let me go do it. Right?
Oh my God.
And so I had applied at CCA here, and they turned me down because San Francisco is where I always wanted to live. San Francisco, I was this crazy kid that's like in the center of Washington State. I had visited here one time, and I had posters of San Francisco on my wall.
Amazing.
I was a diehard 49er fan as a kid. So
Still are.
Still are. And so I really wanted to live in San Francisco. So I applied at CCA without even telling my parents, and I got turned down.
Oh my God.
And they said that I didn't have enough experience in like a bigger restaurant because I was in this little town, right? And so I made a deal with my parents, said, okay, if I'm going to go to school, I'll go to Washington. I'll go to UW, or I'll go to, I'll go to Seattle.
Yeah.
And so for a year. So I went at the beginning of the summer, got a job, and all I talked about was cooking. I got a job at the Space Needle.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And that was like my first, experience. And I still loved it. And all I would talk about when I came home was the restaurant. That's all I cared about. And so to my father's credit, he started, realizing it was going to happen. And on his own, he went to New York and went to the CIA and Culinary Institute of America, and he went and saw the school.
Wow, he scouted it for you.
And then he came back and said, look, if this is what you're going to do, this is the school you need to go to.
That's amazing.
And he said, you sell everything you own. You show me your good. Because I actually did really well. I'm running this restaurant and I'm living with my parents. So I had bought a couple cool cars and did the things you would normally piss away your money with when you're at that age, right? And he said, you show me the commitment and then I'll let you go. And that's how it happened. Yeah.
That's amazing. So I want to fast forward a little bit. You go to the CIA at Hyde Park, correct?
Yep.
And then after that, you're in New York for a little bit before you come to San Francisco to help open Aqua.
Yeah, so there's two steps. So
Sure.
At CIA, you do an externship in the middle, in between the 2 years. So I actually did it at the Hotel Bel Air. That's where I met George Marone. He was the chef there. And funny.
Can I ask who has eaten at Aqua back when it was open? Wow.
Oh, I love it.
That's amazing.
I love it. Thank you all very much. And the gentleman George had worked for Charlie Palmer in New York, who has Oriel and a lot of other restaurants. He has Dry Creek Kitchen up. And Charlie was, he was really like, Charlie was really, he still is. He was a very powerful chef in the sense of, very engaged with the school and with the CIA and everything else. And so one of this guy that was going to work for Charlie, was going to be his chef de cuisine, was helping out George because they knew each other until Charlie opened Oriel in New York. So I was really blessed when I was an extern. I got really close to this gentleman named Jerry Hayden, and he probably had the most influence on me of anybody besides, George and Charlie. And he was going back to be the chef of Oriel. And when Oriel opened in New York, it was a groundbreaking restaurant. I'd say that the people that knew Aqua, it was there was a lot of similarities, kind of by accident. Charlie doesn't think so, but it was a groundbreaking restaurant in New York because there were so many French restaurants. If you were a New York 3 or 4 star restaurant, you're probably one of the old guard, probably a French restaurant. And Oriel really kind of broke that barrier. And so I was really blessed because I got to go down every weekend, and I would get because Charlie was so powerful in school, they'd let me out on Fridays and after half the day, and I'd take the train and go down, and I'd do Friday, Saturday at Oriel, and then do Sunday at River Cafe. And it was kind of my schedule. My whole year which was amazing because like you're going to school and you're really seeing why you're going to school.
Sure, yeah.
And you're in, and those were real kitchen days. Those were intense services.
Long hours. That's
Yeah. And so, so when I got done with school, I did go back to Oriel, and then always stayed really close with George. And then we got the opportunity through a gentleman that used to always come into Oriel that wanted his accountant owned what became Aqua. It was a dive sports bar called Seven Hills. And it was next door to Tattage. And one of the funniest stories is when I was in school, you had to do a case study, a 1-month case study on a restaurant. And because I was so infatuated with San Francisco, I picked Tattage Grill because it was the oldest restaurant.
Heck yeah.
So I had done a 1-month case, like a full case study on Tattage Grill.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And then we ended up right next door.
That's amazing.
right next door, and doing a fish restaurant.
That's amazing. So I want to fast forward and rewind a little bit, if that makes sense. So after Aqua, you started the Mina Group, of course, and the first restaurant named.
Yeah, Michael Mina.
Correct.
Yep.
Now, my question. Now, this is the rewinding part. You were born as Ashraf Mina.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
And at what, I kind of think it's a funny story or kind of endearing about how, just tell me about like the name Ashraf. Do you know, what does that mean? Do you know?
Leader. Yeah.
Amazing. Now, you changed your name at 8. Is that from what
No.
No. Oh my gosh.
No.
Please tell me.
So at 8 years old, you get your father's name as your middle name. Mm-hmm. And so I had my father's name. And then when you get your citizenship, we got our citizenship when I was 8. Mm-hmm. When you get your citizenship, then you get to pick your middle name. Mm-hmm. And my best friend's name was Michael. And so I was like, I like that name.
Yep.
So I picked it. And I did not change my name. So
I see. Gotcha.
And so my first 18 years of life,
sure.
I went by Ashraf, which was
I see.
It was intense, especially growing up in the town I grew up in. I was one of one,
Yeah.
And so every time that you were in a new class or anything, and the teacher had to pronounce your name or anything else, it was always. I always hid from. You don't want to be different. When you're young, you don't want to be different. You don't want to deal with all that. Yeah. And, you go to my house would smell different than other homes. My mom would be cooking Arabic food, all the time. And so you didn't really want to be different. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of lived with it till I was 18. So when I went to CIA, it was still early. I mean, this was 86. I mean, it still wasn't what the world is today for sure. Mm-hmm. I just made a decision. I said, I'm going to go by Michael.
Yeah.
And that was it. That's when I started going by Michael and kind of have done it ever since.
Yep. So then that sort of leads kind of for me to, I want to kind of get into the book. And it seems though that, for a large part of your career, it's been sort of centered around, Michael Mina a little bit, right? Like the restaurant Michael Mina and sort of just the empire that you built. And it seems that in the last sort of, 10 years, let's call it, like 2016, I believe, is when you first started doing like a pop-up of exploring sort of my question to you is, why did it like take so long to arrive to this point, but like what brought you to this point now, like this far in your career to want to start exploring sort of the Egyptian side, right? You kind of went through and built this like tremendous empire, right? Mm-hmm. What happened in the last, let's say, either when you started the pop-up or like a couple years ago when Ornos turned to started exploring a little bit more the Spice Road and what was there like something where you're like, like, I want to like now come back to this, like this part of me, and I want to explore this. Was there something that like, what led you down that sort of route, or was it just timing? Like you've sort of like been there, done that, and you're like, I'm just curious.
Yeah. It's kind of, this will be a long answer because it kind of explains a lot about what it is and what the book is and everything else.
Yeah, please.
What I got out of my mom's cooking and being at home and, being at that, like I said, meals when you're in a family like mine, and I think that there's many, this isn't, I think, solely the Middle East or anything. I mean, there's many countries that are the same way. The weekends were 30 people in a house, and there's food all over the table. And, it starts out and everybody's laughing and having a great time and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, everyone's fighting and crying, and there's the World War III is going on and everything else. And then they're back to laughing, and then you're playing cards, and it's like food is part of the whole day, right? Mm-hmm. It's part of the experience. And the food that my mom cooked had a huge influence on my cooking, but it didn't. And the influence it had is it's bold food. Mm-hmm. You eat Middle Eastern food. It's got acid, it's got sweet, it's got spice, it's got fat. It's really, this food is bold. Like when they make baklava, they're pouring sugar water all over it. And we're not talking like they're brushing it on the top, right? Yeah. This is real, right? Yeah, this is intense flavors. And so with intense flavors, you have to have really good balance in your food and balance all those things. And so that's really the start of how my palate got trained as a kid. Yep. And you always do kind of cook to your palate.
Sure.
And so I'd say was my first introduction. And then I got to go on this journey of cooking and like when you go to CIA, I mean, you learn other cuisines, but it's pretty European.
Sure.
I mean, you're cooking a lot of French food, you're Definitely. Cooking a little Italian food, but your real focus is fairly European in the cooking back then, especially. And so, there's beauty to that. Like you fall in love with reduction sauces and all those things that you make. I mean, there's a lot of beauty to that style of cooking. And so, I knew that's what I wanted to do and continue to do that. Aqua was a blessing because it was a fish restaurant. Mm-hmm. So you never were locked into anything. Like, I put a Japanese dish on the menu.
Sure.
Even back then.
Sure.
Doesn't matter as long as it's fish, right?
Right.
So we did get to play with the globe and so early on, I did get to play with some of this. Mm-hmm. There's never a restaurant dedicated to it. And as time went on, I was kind of always thinking about doing it, but I was thinking about doing it at the right time. And also, both the right time for when it would resonate with people. Mm-hmm. It's the city that you're going to do it in. It's, because, San Francisco, you could do it in San Francisco because you got so many, look at all this. You got all foodies in this city. So you could do it, but it's, it's definitely the type of restaurant that would have been very much a part of your, kind of a part of your soul. And I know what the spices are like. I know what it's like. I knew the dedication that it was going to take for me to do it. And at that time, we were growing a business. And it's not something that I wanted to do and without doing the full thing. And the full thing to me was exactly what this is. And so the reason the book is called My Egypt, and so you are right. When we did Mediterranean, the test kitchen, that was the first time we fully did a concept that spoke to this style of food. And a lot of you probably don't know this, but the last year before the pandemic, Michael Mina, where Aqua used, after we moved from the Westin and we moved back to where Aqua was, the last year of Aqua, I actually wanted to see how much we could push the boundary. And we did this. We did this food at Aqua, and at Michael Mina, and that's all we did. It was all this food at a very upscale level at a Michelin star restaurant and really pushing the envelope. That's not the restaurant that I wanted because that's not the way you eat this food.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do it for the sake of doing it and cooking the food and everything else. And it was also because it was the start of saying it's time to do the book. And the My Egypt name is because I knew I'm not an authority on Egyptian cooking because I didn't spend enough time in Egypt. So My Egypt.
Good 2 years.
But yeah, but I said, My Egypt in this book is going to be all about taking everything that my mom taught me, because I started seeing all the other great chefs that were doing, like Michael Solomonov doing Israeli food or whatever it was, great Lebanese food, good, food from Jordan, different places. There's not a lot of Egyptian chefs, I guess maybe not a lot of them want to have that conversation with their parents. I don't know what it is, but it wasn't like there's, 20 other Egyptian chefs in it. But there is a lot of dishes, because everybody thinks of Egypt, they think of like molokhaya, and falafel, and ful medemis, maybe like 3 dishes, and there's just a lot more to it. I mean, 2 great people right here. They're sitting here with it right in the, in the front here, who wrote the book. I mean, we learned so much going there about it. And what we wanted to do is take this journey of saying the foundation of what I ate with my mom, go to Egypt, really learn about it, and then take the foundation of the food and then elevate it, but not destroy it.
Yep.
Take it and say, this is the foundation, and then how do we put, this journey of my cooking to the technique, the innovation, the product, and then elevate it without losing the foundation. And so this book was very important to us to do it in a way where if it's going to be falafel, which they call tolmeya, we're going to show you like how it's made there, how my mom made it. And then we're going to put, ahi tuna on top of it, and we're going to make a crudo out of it. But we're not going to destroy the foundation of it. And so that, and that took a lot of time. We started the book, it was probably 6 or 7 years.
Yeah. When was it like the moment? How was it? Yeah. When you're like, oh yeah, this is my second book that I need to write. Like, when did that happen? When was? Yeah.
So the first book, the Michael Mina cookbook, I was really. I was never going to write 20 books. I didn't even think I would actually write 2. The first book I felt really needed to be written because when I left Aqua, there was just a lot of things that I wanted people to know I wanted them to see what Michael Mina was going to be, the restaurant, and that was really about the restaurant, and it was kind of about the journey up to that point, and it was a coffee table cookbook. It wasn't something few people cook out of it, but not a lot of people cooked out of it, right? This one was really important because I always knew that at some point I wanted to do this, and I wanted to do this, and I wanted to do it while my parents were still alive, and do something, because this one was really for 3 reasons. One, because this is truly, I feel this way. The people are just beautiful people that are there, and they'll give you the shirt off their back, and they're funny, and they're great people. But they kind of think they think everything's worth something. So that's why you don't see a lot of Egyptian cookbooks, I think, because they don't want to give out the recipes, or Yeah. And it's kind of funny that as kind of romantic and as intriguing as Egypt is, it hasn't gotten a lot of play. Like, people don't really know what it is. So I was like, I don't see a lot of other chefs in the United States who are going to go do that.
Sure.
And so that was another part of wanting to do it. And then showing what you could make it.
When was the first time you went back to, when you went, was it via Yeah. Well, when was like the first time that you went back to?
Probably 12 years ago.
Are you okay?
Yeah, like 12 years ago I went. And that was the first time. And then,
And let me ask you a question. Sorry to interrupt, but when you went back, and was it more for that first time? Maybe you remember, maybe you don't. But like when you was the reason going? Was it like business, or was it like, oh, I want to see my like roots? Do you remember the first time?
100% it was business. And that was 100% when I said we got to do the book.
Really? Yeah. Wow, crazy. So that was my follow-up question is, so do you feel that going back, like at that 100%. First trip, you're like, wow, this is like where I'm from. This is like my, like, did you feel that like, that sort of like connected rootedness, or was it more like, was it like this innate sort of like human sort of feeling of like, this is my home? Or was it more like, cool, like this is where my parents were from and this is neat. This is like part of my history.
It was multiple things.
Yeah.
First of all, it's a poor country. Mm-hmm. And it was the first time that I saw, I have 2 young boys at that time. First time I saw, young kids running around at 5 years old, no one watching them on the streets, asking for money that looked like my kids, like all over the place. And so that touched me deeply. And then just seeing how proud they were of everything in Egypt, and seeing kind of like everything from the poverty to the beauty and to the history and everything else. I was like, hearing the stories, hearing the food stories, everything else, I was like, I'm not, like I said, I'm not the authority on it by any stretch of the imagination. I was like, let's do something. Mm-hmm. This would be a great time to do it, because it lines up to first of all, I'm super intrigued by it. Secondly, it was like, I think that there's a need to start to do whatever like I want to see. And this kind of happened throughout the process. Was I met this unbelievable man, this chef, named Mustafa, and he's all over in the book. There'd be no book.
Your food guide, right? He took you around. And
he was, and he was more than that, because he told me a story that broke my heart. He's like, oh yeah, you opened in Detroit. I was living there. I was a chef there. Mm-hmm. And I kept trying to see you, because he's like, and I would always miss you when you came to town. And he's like, and I came once and they said you were here, you were going to be here a certain day. And so I made a reservation and brought my family and everything else. And then something happened and you had to cancel the trip. And I was like, oh boy, that's great.
That was back then where there were no DMs to slide it through, right?
And he turned out to be much more than a chef. Turned out to be just a great person, but he was almost like a historian, but just a wealth of knowledge and knew everybody. And then he had a group of, chefs that had worked for him or whatever, and all this little group. And it ended up being like every time we'd go back, I think I went 6 times, and every time we'd be all of us together. And much as they were teaching, as much as they wanted to learn from me how to get ahead, how to do it, I was learning from them. And it was a beautiful thing. And they were, extremely helpful, beyond helpful. I mean, it became a team effort to do this and to bring this to life. And so that's why it took so long. That's because, I thought it would be a lot quicker, and it could have been a lot quicker, but it wouldn't have ended up being where we got it to.
So let's get a little bit deeper into the book, if that's okay. Sure. Tell me, you went to Egypt 6 times. Each time, is it more like research of ingredients and dishes? Is it to eat at places, stands? Tell me about the process.
Yeah. We wanted to do everything. We wanted to really do it all. I mean, we wanted to go, I went where you got to watch, 4 ladies sit on the ground and with a 5-foot table pulling dough to make fatir, and and video this and learn about it and everything else, the right way to do these things. You know, my mom made a lot of this stuff, but that was the only way I ever saw it, is how my mom and my aunt made these dishes. Then I wanted to learn more about the history of, like, you know, what came from Egypt. Like, you know, foie gras came from Egypt.
Wait, what?
Yeah, foie gras started in Egypt. Like, you go back in the pyramids, you'll see it. One of the dishes that we
Really?
yeah.
That's wild.
One of the dishes that we
I always thought it was this like French sort of.
oh yeah, just ask any of the French people.
No kidding.
Yeah, they'll tell you.
What?
And, you know,
Wow.
wine, beer, everyone knows beer did. That's what they served. That's what they gave everybody that was building the pyramids. It was fascinating. There was so many things that were fascinating about it that we learned. And look, everyone can argue everything, but, you know, when you start getting into like Middle Eastern cooking, and then I think the thing that was the most intriguing is every place we went, every region we went was different, right? And so, like, if you go to Alexandria, which they call Scandaria, you've got, you know, it's all seafood. It's very Mediterranean, and that's where you see, like, Alexander the Great. That's where you see the influence, how much Greek influence there was in the food. So a lot of the food that I grew up eating, that I thought was, you know, like 100% Egyptian, had a lot of Greek influence in it, because that's what my dad liked to eat. So my mom would cook that a lot. And so those were the things that you started to uncover, and you started to see that, like, wow, there's a lot of depth to this, because Egypt's been invaded by so many countries, and there's a lot to this. There's staples that are kind of throughout the Middle East that each have their own way of doing it, you know, and then there's food that was inherited from places outside of the Middle East because Egypt was invaded. So it was really cool.
Nice. Tell us about, everyone's going to get a book tonight, right? If they might have one, or if they don't. Tell us, what are like a couple recipes? Maybe let's do 3 perhaps, but like, what are the first 3 that come to mind that people should start with through the book?
You know what?
Like, what's one, if there's like one recipe that you're going to start with, like what is the like one recipe you're like most represents what you know the book is about, and you know what represents your Egypt? Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to give you 2, and then I'm going to put Kate on the spot. So I'm going to make Kate say 1.
Sure.
I'm going to give you 2.
Okay.
The one that we've been talking about, the falafel, because everyone calls it falafel. Like I said, in the Middle East, Egypt, when they make their falafel, they make it with fava beans versus chickpeas. And so this is a dish. This is something that I would ask my mom. This is one of my most vivid memories as a child, because my mom would do, she would make aish beledi, which is like pocket bread. She'd make the bread, bake the bread, and so you're smelling the bread while she's frying the falafel. Oof. And it was with tahina and, you know, salad beledi. Everything's beledi. Beledi's not that romantic a word. It means from my town, right? Yeah. But everything is, you know, something beledi. But my mom would make it, and you'd have tahina, you'd have the salad, which is tomatoes, jalapeno peppers, parsley, red onions, oil, vinegar, lemon, and the falafel, and you'd have it in the bread. So we do the exact same dish without the bread, but we do tahina, we do falafel, we do the salad, and then we do it with ahi tuna as like a crudo. So that really exemplifies what the book's about.
Why the tuna?
Because this is the elevation of it. So the elevation of the cuisine, and this is what I did with all these young chefs. I was like, this is what you guys got to do. You've got to take your cuisine and pay tribute to the foundation of it. But you got to innovate. You got to elevate. These are things you got to do if you want to get it more recognized.
Now, what is I think most people are familiar with chickpea falafel made with chickpea, right? Tamaya? Palmaya. What is the, how does making that with fava beans, like how is that, is it a different, I've never had that. So I'm curious, like, is it a different, taste? Is it a different texture? Is it
No, it's the same thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Is it all just mixed with spices?
A lot, like I said, everybody calls it falafel.
Sure. But I guess versus using chickpeas as a base versus using fava beans.
Oh, it's totally different.
Yeah.
Totally
Well,
different
what is
flavor. It's just a different flavor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the difference of eating a chickpea or a fava bean. You know.
Yeah. Fair. What is a second recipe that?
Okay, so the second one, and the one that I would start with, because I call it Egyptian comfort food. It's like pasta to me. It's the kushari. The kushari in the book I would make, because that's another one that I would like. As I'm getting on the plane, I would call my mom and be like, "Make sure we have kushari when I get home," right? And that's chickpea and lentil, like it's rice with chickpeas and lentil. And in Egypt, they put pasta in it with spicy tomato sauce and like sauteed onions. And there's restaurants, we went to restaurants where they're serving 2,000 bowls of kushari a day. You know, it's like factory. It's like just sitting there, you see 20 or 30 kushari bowls all stacked up. And, you know.
And is there another? Let's just do one more. Actually, no. Tell us about the dish on the cover, and what is it, and why did you choose this dish? Other than it's beautiful, what is the significance of this dish?
Well, you know, first of all, a lot of the food. So the food in the book is, there's really like 3 things that we were going for, right? Like I told you, we would take classic dishes and add to them. But then there's other dishes in the book that we wanted to highlight, like things that really meant a lot, being a lot like mangoes. You know, mangoes in Egypt are like pineapples in Hawaii. Best mangoes I've ever had in my life. Every day that we would go to do something, one of the chefs would bring a bag of mangoes, and every day I'd tell him, "What are all these mangoes?" There's so many different varieties and everything else. I said, "We're never going to eat all these. By the end of the day, we'd eat them all. We'd eat all the mangoes. They're so good." And so, like, in the book, there's a mango and lobster salad, and that's obviously not a classic dish. But what we wanted to do was highlight mangoes and how good the mangoes are in Egypt, and how there's a season for them, and there's so much that goes behind it. And so that is just simple. It's, you know, it's like lebna, it's like frozen yogurt, and all of these, you know, great fruits. And it was one of the dishes when I looked at it that was like exemplified where where I'd love to see people there take the foundation of the food and the flavors and the aromas and everything else and continue to elevate on it. You're always going to have great street food. You're always going to have great home cooked food, just like we do here in the United States. It's like, it's the same thing, you know, to really take your food, you want to have 3 tiers of your food. You want to have street food, you want to have, you know, really good comfort food and home cooked food, and then you want to take what's great about your food and your product and elevate it with some technique and some innovation. And then that's, you know, I think how you get a cuisine to get a little bit more dynamic.
There's the Michael Mina philosophy. Yeah. Okay. I think I want to now just get into some like quick rapid fire questions, and then I'll take the questions from the audience, and I think that'll be our talk. What do you think?
Sure.
Cool. So these are just kind of silly questions that I thought about, and I just, no right or wrong answers, but they're your answers, and I just want to know. What's your favorite burger in the Bay Area?
Wow. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Because I have a childhood one from Ellensburg that's so
Bay Area.
ingrained in my head that I can't.
We can revisit if you...
Let's revisit
Okay.
that one because I don't...
Well, you may not like this next one then. Favorite burrito in the Bay Area?
La Taqueria.
La Taqueria forever.
Forever, yeah.
All right. Cocktail of choice.
Simple, like...
Vodka sodas?
No, Japanese whiskey.
Japan.
Yeah, if I'm gonna drink, I'm not as much of a cocktail person that goes with the mixology cocktails as much as just, really kind of like
Manhattan or no, Manhattan or oh my God, what is the vodka cocktail? The martini. Manhattan or martini?
I'm a martini.
Martini. There we go. Gin or vodka?
Vodka. I don't like gin at all.
Okay. All right. When you're in town, so now you live in Las Vegas.
Back and forth.
Back and forth. But what's the thing you miss most about the Bay?
Jeez. Nicosia.
Nicosia.
Yeah.
Ah,
I mean,
okay.
because we lived there for so long. And,
Gotcha.
And I have so many amazing memories of everything about the Bay. To answer that question, I'd sit here for 5 hours.
Sure.
I love everything about here, but Nicosia I miss the most because that was like, you go home and that's home, and it was just such a great home to be there.
Yeah. I know tomorrow you leave to another stop, but in general, when you're in town and you're not in the restaurant, I know you still spend a lot of time in your restaurants here. Are there restaurants that you frequent in SF that you're just like, oh yeah, that you tend to want to hit up while you're in town? That aren't MENA restaurants.
Yeah. Just because I've gone there for so long, I usually go to RNG Lounge.
Oh yeah,
I've gone, and they're really nice. They're just super nice to me. They always make me fun, fun.
That's nice.
Like different dishes and things like that. I mean, there's so many restaurants, but I still go to Angler a lot.
Oh yeah.
I go to. I still actually, when it's casual, I like going to Tony's Pizza.
Oh yeah.
Just because of the vibe.
Yeah, absolutely.
The vibe. I love just kind of sitting at the counter and going there. But yeah, there's a lot of places.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Just a couple quick more questions and I'll get to you guys' questions. I'm so curious, in your vast career that spans over decades in dozens of restaurants at this point, over 30, but over time, just so many. And just in life in general, being a father and what is the thing you're most proud of? And I want to kind of almost answer this for you in the sense that I want to tell you what I see as what I'm very impressed. But I still want to hear your answer. But I want to just tell you and the audience what I think is maybe perhaps the most impressive thing is that I spend a good time of my career traveling the country and eating at different restaurants throughout the country. And there's so many times in so many places and so many restaurants that someone will have worked and passed through one of this guy's restaurants over the last 30 years. And to me, what's so insane is the crazy legacy of dozens and hundreds and thousands, maybe, I don't know, of people over the course of decades that have passed through your kitchen. I mean, just here in San Francisco, there's Ryan Cole, who has High Neighbor Restaurant Group. He has Seven Adams and, Trestle. Michael Rafidi in DC, who has Albi. Nish Chowda, who just opened up Choi in Nashville. So many, to me, that is wildly impressive. And to me, that's what I'm most proud of you for, is that legacy, I think it's really, really rad and awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyway,
So
that's
we're
just
good then.
No, it's your turn.
So obviously, like you said, there's no way that anything is ever gonna be more fulfilling than your family raising kids, right? So if you put that aside, I think that what you say about the people that have come through, I look at it very different. I look at it as I was blessed, but kind of thrown into it in the sense that I think I was 23 or 24 when I was the chef of Aqua. And so
It's crazy.
we all grew up together.
Yeah.
And so I always look at it as I never looked at it as I don't believe in, saying, oh, I'm all these people's mentor. I'm not. We all had a role in building Mina Group. It isn't Michael Mina. There's way too many. There's too many restaurants, too many people. And so I think that being able to, it's felt great to be able to be the person to create those opportunities. But to me, everyone lends part of the foundation that then a Michael Rafiti can take and go and make his imprint in the world,
Yeah.
And so I think that that's been really rewarding to see that can happen. And I'll tell you, early on, I will tell you certain things that aggravated me that I felt were unfair. And I think that chefs many years ago, and I'm really glad it changed, early on, I remember doing my second restaurant. We won't talk about publications or anything, but we'll just say, when you did your second restaurant back then, the media crushed you. They were like, oh, you're not going to be in your kitchen anymore, blah, blah, blah. But it was okay for quote unquote restaurateurs to do it, but not chefs to have multiple restaurants. And I always said, when chefs end up with multiple restaurants, food's going to get better in this country. It's going to continue to get better. And now you see it. A lot of chefs that said they'd never have more than one restaurant have many restaurants, and a lot of them are really good. And the food has gotten a lot better. And I think that it's a great thing. I think that it's something that has helped food move forward. Yes, everyone wants that romance of, you're there and you're cooking every single thing for them. And there are restaurants like that, and those restaurants are great too. But that doesn't mean that you can't do this. And as long as you realize it's not you're not doing all of it. You're helping, you're the conductor, and you're helping create the opportunity.
Cool. I think I'm going to get into some audience questions. What do you think? That's a good one. What was the biggest lesson you learned when you opened your first restaurant?
Oh, jeez. Oh, boy. I didn't realize as a chef, everyone thinks that you're an expert on everything. The toilet breaks. Well, let's go talk to chef. He'll know how to fix it. And I think the biggest lesson you learn is that you're not. You're not, and there's, especially when you're young, you feel like you're young, so you need to have the answer, or otherwise people aren't gonna, appreciate what you're doing or your position, or think that you're too young for your position. But you're not. You're better off just like figuring out if you got 60 people there, one of them's going to know how to do it better than you. Just, ask all 60 of them. But at that point, I don't think I asked enough. Okay.
Do you think you'll open an elevated Egyptian restaurant at some point?
I think we already have.
Yep.
I think so we have Orla that we opened in Mandalay Bay, and then we just opened in Santa Monica at the old Lowe's Hotel, the new Regent. And that is definitely every dish that's in that book almost is at that restaurant.
Ooh, this is a good one. From Dwight Moore. Dwight Moore signed off. He was the only person that signed off. Which dish of yours gives you the most joy, and why?
Probably the caviar parfait.
Yeah?
It's been around for a long time. It was a dish that I created for my wife on our honeymoon for breakfast because she kept complaining about not having caviar in Hawaii. And so
Oh my God.
figured I'd score some points.
Is there anyone you wish you could cook with?
Yes, John Louis Paladin. He's not alive anymore. And I got the pleasure of getting to know him very, very well. I never worked under him, but to me, he was the greatest chef. Yeah, we did events together, but to me, there was just, I had never experienced a person that was that passionate about food and could cook that good.
Maybe tell the audience.
Yeah,
a
so
little
Jean-Louis Palladin was the youngest chef to ever get 3 Michelin stars in France. And then he left France, which was a huge deal. Like, people were pissed. And he went to DC and he did the Watergate Hotel. And he was the chef's chef. Like, any chef is like, in the United States, that, all of the great chefs that we have here, from, Chef Daniel to John George, to you name it, Jean-Louis was the guy that, we all were like, wow, that's Jean-Louis.
Let's see. Can you talk about some of your current and future? Ooh, that's a really good one. Can you talk about some of the current and future challenges facing the restaurant industry?
Sure. People. Just to continue on to that topic is, obviously, like what I was saying before, there's no such thing as a one-man restaurant or a one-person restaurant. I mean, there's just no such thing, right? It's all about the people. It's all about the people that work with you and everything else. And so you have to look at it, I think, more strategic than you ever have. I mean, I'm not bought into this whole thing that everyone keeps saying, like, this generation doesn't want to do it, this generation's not willing to do it. I think this generation learns differently, and you have to meet them where they're at, and you have to, it's like none of us, that grew up did a lot of the digital learning, but this generation does do it, and you have to meet them there. You have to be patient. You have to look at it a lot different than you did before. And I'm not going to lie and sit up here and say there isn't times that, you freak out and say, why aren't we doing it this way still, or whatever else it is. But you got to just say you can't. There's just certain things that have changed, and you can't say that they've changed for the worse, because it's not like food's getting worse. Food's getting better in this country. It continues to get better. So, so you got to kind of meet it where it's at, and then, you just have to really, it's competitive. It's very competitive. And I think that's part of it too, is like, you look at it and it's, if you look at it and you say it's a balanced scale, right? There is way more great restaurants than there used to be. Like, you can go to the middle of nowhere, you can go to Wisconsin and, in, Green Bay, and you're going to find a great restaurant. You're going to find somebody that worked for Thomas Keller for 3 years and went back and opened a restaurant, and does great food, right? So there's more competition than ever, but also there's more people that are learning how to cook the right way than ever, because all of those are just places, and not just cook, serve, wine, mixology, everything. And so that's the hardest part of it, is like making the time to be able to find those folk, to be able to find those people and nurture it the right way.
Follow-up question to that. Do you think it's important, and would you suggest that, say someone's young and coming up, and they want to pursue this sort of career as a cook or in a kitchen or just in food, do you think it's important that they go to culinary school still? Or do you think at this point, would you steer them away from it? What would you?
I'd never steer them away from it. It's a disciplined foundation. And I think that in this day and age, there's a lot to be said about having a culinary school, like like if you're going to go to the right one, like if you go to CIA, I would never steer anybody away from going to CIA. I think it's a great place to start. Look at how many chefs are sending their kids. So John George's son went to CIA. I mean, look at how many Charlie Palmer's son went to CIA. I'd never steer them away from it. I still think it's great, but it's not the only way to learn how to cook. The other way takes more Probably a little bit more grit, maybe a little more patience, maybe a little more time. I'm not sure. Depends on where you get into.
The other way being?
Just picking restaurants, getting into restaurants. Really, that way has a little bit more to do with luck, like where you get into and then how aggressive you are.
Sure. What do you think of the TV series The Bear?
Look, I wouldn't tell you that I watch it. I watched a couple episodes. And it's not because I don't think it's good. It's just I live it. I live in a restaurant. Like I don't go home and want to watch. I don't rush home to watch it. But I haven't decided yet, and I'll tell you why. It was the same reason that I think anything that helps people want to get into our industry, I would support. I can't tell yet if it's helping. Like I know if my father watched it, he probably would have been harder. It would have been harder to get to get there. And so I don't know yet.
Yeah.
But then they say no press is bad press, so maybe it does help.
Yeah.
I don't know yet, but that would be the only way that I would judge it. As far as how realistic it is, it's like anything else. Whenever they make television, there's probably 10% of places that maybe are that way. I don't know.
No.
But it's not, it's not every kitchen, that's for sure.
What was the best piece of professional advice that you received, and who was it from?
Best piece of professional advice. I would say that probably was from my pastry chef at the Culinary Institute of America. His name was Chef Schreier. And he said to me, so I had done pastry my whole extern, right? And I ended up like running the pastry shop at the Hotel Bel Air. And I was young. So when you're young, you're not always that smart. You're a little cockier than you are good, right? So I can admit I was there, right? And he said to me, one day, he said, he really put it in perspective of like, do you think I want to teach you? And I said, what do you mean? He's like, do you think that, kind of acting like a little bit more than the other people that's going to make me want to come over here? If I've got 30 students, do you think that's going to make me want to walk over to you? And I said, probably not. And he said, think about that. And I was like, you're right. You're absolutely right. You got to be starving for information. You got to be starving to get any piece of information you can get. And it really hit home. Like, you don't need to show people how good you are. You actually need to show them how hungry you are.
And we're actually out of time. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All
Thank you
right.
very much.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.